All right.
My computer's kind of slow this morning. Jesus, I need to get a new computer. I think it's 4 years old.
Preach.
That's ancient.
Okay, I think we're live now. It should be.
Live?
The delay should catch up here in just a second. Very professional on my end. As always.
There's a 15-minute delay, guys. Be patient.
Yep. And I'm waiting for it to kick up so I can mute my YouTube so the echo doesn't kick in. Here we go. Get a new computer, I think. Yep, there we go. Okay, so we got that up. What's up, everybody? First thing we're going to do is a little audio test. Let us know if you hear us. Sean Chandler talks about, can you say something, please, good sir?
I can.
Sweet.
What would you like me to say?
You just said it. Cody?
Yes!
What's up, everybody?
Sweet.
Happy Sunday.
All right, cool. So far, so good. Durbs, go ahead.
What is up? How you doing?
Sweet.
Am I tested? Mic tested.
Yep, I think we're going to be good. CP?
I'm going to try to be PG-13 today. We'll see how that goes.
I got money that you're not. Bryan Lomax, say something.
Never gonna happen.
Friday the 13th, the original. Say that. Okay. Can you guys hear us in the chat? Let us know, and then I can start this madness. Okay. And we go to opening.
Good old delay.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, you gotta love that good old delay. Now, Sean, we're gonna start some intro music here. It's about 1 minute and 40 seconds, and so then after that we're already live, but we'll go ahead and start introducing you guys.
Everyone sounds good.
All right, cool. Here we go.
He says 1 minute 40, but he actually means 6 minutes and 22. I sound like God. Do I have an echo?
Not really.
Oh, well, then that's just a compliment.
Echo. It sounds like when it's done. Whenever you hear us.
I got it.
I'll get
Won't always recognize me. Not even my own face. I can't take the ups and downs. I have to take these pills. Just like me. I'm just gonna I'm standing in the middle of nowhere with nothing to
What's up, everybody? Welcome to a new episode of Screen
Hey, Lee.
Stream.
Hey, Will.
Go ahead, Cody.
There's an echo on everybody except for you. We'll get started.
Let me see. Hold on. Let me go down
Trying to hear
here.
your info. I think you walked away.
Oh, I gotta. Okay, it should be fixed now without going into any technicals.
Hello.
Okay, let us know from this point forward, everybody. Let us know if there's still any issues. We should be good. Carry on, Lee.
Okay, good. What's up, everybody? Welcome to a new episode of Scream Stream. Today, I have two very special guests. Before I get to my very special guests, let's go say hi to some people in the chat. There's a birthday in the chat. Dag101 has a birthday. Happy birthday.
Happy birthday, Dad.
Yep. Lori Hagney, who just won the big Howling giveaway, she won the grand prize, so good for her. And we got Soldier Style, Ninja Assassin, Birthday Boy, Ryan Strom, and Matt Larson. A lot of good people. Beth from B-Side Records. What's up, Beth? How are you doing?
Hey, Beth.
Yeah,
Well,
Von
you
Jekyll
should've had the
Art,
giveaway
who
at 9,
actually
you know that,
created
right?
this mask that I got over here. Yeah, got to plug him. He does a great job. We got two awesome guests for you guys today. We got Sean Chandler, if you guys know my channel, you probably know Sean's channel. But Sean, go ahead and introduce yourself, buddy. Tell us about your channel.
Yeah, my name is Sean Chandler, and basically I have a channel for anybody that likes to talk about movies way too much and isn't ashamed to like big franchises and blockbusters and stuff like that. So, movie reviews, rankings, all that fun stuff, and just try and start good conversations about movies.
Awesome.
And be positive in the process.
Yeah, good luck.
Unless we talk about Alien 3, right?
Yeah, unless it's about
Ooh,
Alien 3, then it's going to get negative.
That gets heated. That gets real heated.
Well,
Durbs, how you doing? Durbania from Durbania. Tell us about your channel. He was here last time, and he was such a great guest. Nice to have him back. Go ahead, Durbania.
Well, thank you for having me back. I'm excited to talk about, this new Pet Sematary movie and other Stephen King stuff because, Cody has been teaching me about all these things and introduced me to Pet Sematary. So I'm excited to talk. On my channel, I do like a lot Sean does. I do rankings. I do movie reviews. I talk about movies, but I do this thing called a theological analysis where I love to dig deep into movies and their symbolism. And my Pet Sematary theological analysis just went over 10,000 views. So
That's
I'm
awesome,
super
man.
excited
Congratulations.
about that.
Awesome.
Great. That's great news. Cody, how are you doing, brother?
I'm doing pretty well. Looking forward to this. I'm glad to have my buddy Sean and my buddy Durbin on here. It's always fun talking with them. Stephen King's a great subject. I've been having fun talking about it all weekend. Yeah, ready to get into it.
Yeah, me too. I realized I was just talking to Durb before this, and sometimes you forget that Stephen King did like so and so movie. Like Shawshank Redemption.
Yeah.
That's a Stephen King. So we're gonna get into all that. CP, how are you doing, brother?
Not to be outdone, my Salo review crossed 10,000 views.
No kidding. That means you accessed the dark web.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
I'm on the
Bryan
watch
Lomax Movie Talk. How you doing, brother?
Hello.
Hey,
You're
you
right.
should not sound tired.
I'm Bryan Lomax Movie Talk, as you know. I also do a channel called The Movie Evangelist, which is very much in the vein of Durbin's theological analysis videos. I do actually have one for the new Pet Sematary coming along in the next few days. So, but past few weeks I've mainly just been laying on my floor with a bad back watching Hammer movies. So.
Oh, man. Yeah, I freaking just had those back issues a couple weeks ago. It's such a pain. So
Video problems.
yeah, they're saying it's lagging. I think it's because we have. I think maybe it's a Skype thing. Let me see if I close my windows here. Maybe it'll help.
Famous last words.
Yeah, let me see if I can close some stuff here on my computer. And I rebooted my computer before we started this. So.
Lee, don't have a video rendering in the background. That's just going to chew everything up.
I guarantee you 3 of us have a video rendering right now. So.
I actually have one a third of the way through being edited, but it's not rendering yet.
Okay. You know what? I think maybe I'll just, if I close my whole window here, my whole browser window, let me see if I just do that. Yeah.
It seems to be going decent now that I can see.
I think that'll clear us up a little bit. I don't really care about the count. I can see my chat window here. I got that. So, yeah. So, we're going to break this up into 2 hours. The first hour, we're going to talk about Pet Sematary. We'll talk about the original. We'll talk about the new one. And then the second hour, we'll talk about Stephen King movies. First off, I guess my question for my guests is I'd like to hear you guys' opinions or maybe experience with the original. I'll start with you, Sean. If you've even seen the original Pet Sematary.
So I watched the original Pet Sematary for the first time a week ago, just last Sunday, in preparation for the new one coming out.
Wow.
So, and there's no particular reason. I hadn't been avoiding it. It's not one of those movies that in my circles it had kind of come across my plate or anything like that.
Yeah.
So for no particular reason, I had just never seen it. And then as kind of chatter talk leading up to this one, Cody started mentioning like, "Oh, you haven't seen it. Well, you got to see this one." I was like, "Oh, I better watch this one then." And so
Cody gets on to you. You better get at it.
That's right.
And so then went and watched it, and it's an interesting one to watch now for the first time because it's a 30-year-old horror film, and both for the aesthetics, production values, there's a number of things about it that have dated quite a bit. There's still a lot of like it's creepy, it's effective, but when you're watching it for the first time now, very much walk into the experience and notice everything about
it's
it.
Like a time zone.
Sean, did you watch the 4K version of it?
I was watching a DVD of it that
Okay.
I was sent from Netflix because I'm apparently in the year 2007. So in the mail, disc and everything.
I didn't know they even still did that. That's awesome.
They do indeed. And so then that could have been part of it, but then especially the flashback sequences are really unsettling, but they also look, I don't know, they look cheap. I would say it that way.
Yeah.
So I'm interested to have somewhat of a conversation about it to kind of have a little back and forth on some of that, because it, like, for me, it's like, okay, there's a lot of great ideas in here. Definitely gets under your skin. I don't really get scared by movies, so I can't say I was scared by it, but I had interesting conversations about, like, do you guys see some of the datedness of it or not?
Okay. Yeah. I think for me, just to show my age here, I saw Pet Sematary in the theater, the original. Back in '89, I believe I saw it twice, and I remember the atmosphere around it was pretty big. Like, everybody was like, "Wow, this movie's special. Everybody was talking about Pet Sematary when it first came out. So the original definitely left its mark, and still 30 years later, you got fans like me and Cody. We adore the original, and I think for me, the big reason why I love the original so much is the emotion, because I'm a big horror guy, but not too many horror movies tap into like emotion and make you feel like really sad and want to so it's one of the few horror movies that actually made me cry when I saw it, and it's interesting to get your perspective, somebody that has never seen it or you just saw it this year, because even in my review I stated that I think there's two different audiences for this new movie, those that don't like the original and those that do, and I think that will determine whether you like the new movie or not.
Except for Bryan.
Yeah, and there's definitely outliers, of course. I mean, I had a couple people in my comments say, I love both, so that's going to happen too. Real quick, Sean.
Wait. Those who don't like it or those who do, doesn't that cover everybody?
No. What I'm saying is those that don't like the
yeah.
original and those that do, and that will determine whether they like the new one or not. It seems like those that don't like the original end up loving the new one.
Okay.
So that's all I was saying. CP, I'll jump to you. Give me your experience with the original.
Oh, Pastor Durbin. Everybody's heard my story about Pet Sematary.
That's why I love you. Durbin, go ahead, man. Hey, I'm going to grab me a monster real quick. Go ahead, Durbin.
Well, I saw it about a year ago for the first time, and it's because you, Lee, and Cody have been kind of my mentors in the horror genre, and it was Cody who was like really hounding me to see it, so I did. And I thought the original was really, really good. Kind of like Sean said, because I saw it for the first time as an adult in my 30s. Like, I could watch it and go, yeah, that is really dated here. That looks really dated there. There's a couple places where I'm like, why didn't they just hire Keanu Reeves? Because this guy is acting like Keanu Reeves and has, like, almost no expression and monotone in his voice. But what you say about the emotion is so true, because it so comes out in the story. And this is probably because, again, I'm seeing this through a colored lens of Cody Leach, who loves this movie and was telling me all about it before I even watched it. But you're right about that emotion. Like, it really does a good job, not just trying to do jump scares and horror elements, but it does a good job dealing with grief and watching grief take this guy who was sane and slowly turn him insane. So that's, spoiler alert, when we get to the end and he's carrying his dead wife up to the pet cemetery, the justification of, well, I put my boy up there too late. She just died. It's going to be fine this time. And it's like, us who are sane watch that and go, dude, you're an idiot. But he is so utterly consumed with grief. It's like, it's an interesting study to watch how that will consume the mind and how that, it was just cool. Like, so I thought that element was kind of neat. Zelda freaked me out. And I think she freaked me out because it was a dude in a costume. Yeah. And the 80s makeup, it's like just realistic enough and just fake enough that it's incredibly unsettling.
Yes, totally.
Yeah.
I thought Zelda in the original was much creepier than the one in the new one.
Mm-hmm. Especially in terms of the physical look of Zelda. The 80s makeup worked really well in making that way more unsettling than them trying to make it a bit more realistic in the new one. And so I don't know. The 80s Zelda was way more unsettling for me.
Yeah.
I think one of the reasons for that as well is that in the new one, you can see that they're trying to go for the realism of the actual condition on which that is based. So that gains me more sympathy for that character. Whereas in the original, because she looks like nothing I've ever really seen that I could attribute to an actual human condition, it's off kilter. It's just a little bit too off there, and it becomes creepier as a result, I think.
Yeah. And that's what really unsettled me, especially when she's like crouched in that corner and runs across the room. You'll never get out of bed again. Like that. I mean, the hair on the back of my neck stood up when I was watching that scene.
Cody, give me your experience with. Didn't you say your father was the one that kind of turned you onto it?
Yeah, like most movies that I kind of grew up and gained love for, my dad kind of sat me down and was like, "You're watching this because this is awesome." So
you're not gonna sleep
Pet
tonight.
Sematary. Well, Pet Sematary. It's part of the funny thing too, because it's one of those movies that like I was telling CP on our stream, like it was always kind of like an event. Like it'd just be some random, Saturday. 8:30, 9 o'clock at night. Hey, what do you want to watch? I don't know. You want to watch Pet Sematary? Yes. And we'd put it on, and it was just me and my dad for 7, 8 years before my brothers and everything started showing up. So that was kind of like an event. And when we would watch it, my dad he grew up loving it. I think he probably saw it in the theaters. I vaguely remember a story about him taking my mom to go see it, but I always loved it. And the Zelda thing, I've said it ad nauseum, but there's as many horror movies as I grew up watching from the early age of even like 3-4 years old. There's only 2 characters ever that really ever scared me to the point where I would have nightmares or I would be uneasy or I couldn't quite watch the TV. There was Tim Curry's Pennywise and Zelda. And Zelda is like 3 times of what the effect Pennywise had on me. So it was like this twisted timing to where whenever the Zelda scene would come up, I would look back and my dad would be asleep on the couch. Like, and I'm like, no, like there's no one to save me. But the movie always was great as a kid, but I've said it's the only horror movie that, as I've gotten older, has kind of evolved with the way that I've watched it. Like you watch it as a kid and it's still scary for all the reasons that, everybody always talks about. But when you watch it as an adult, especially after you have your own kids, it's disturbing on a new level. Because you see, like, I always thought the scariest part and the most emotional part was like the truck scene, but then when I watch it as an adult, the scene that I really have to hold back tears with is when he goes and he digs up Gage and he just holds him. And it's just cold and silent. He just holds him and rocks him for a good 10 seconds before he even says a line. And you see something like that when you have your own kids and you're just like, oh, it's too uncomfortable. It's too close for comfort. And I think it's a movie that, for a horror film, it just dives in and makes things so scary without the typical horror movie stuff. It's not jump scares. There's no monster coming out of the closet or anything like that. It's scary and disturbing because it dives into themes and grief and the acceptance of death or the refusal of death and things that on a day-to-day basis we don't really want to talk about.
Yeah, well, even right from the
ahead,
first shot at the beginning of the movie, you're at that first scene and you see trucks driving down the road and you're like, oh, that's not good. They've got little kids. Like, and that's not a scary horror that's out there in fantasy. That's every parent's nightmare of like, oh, there's just trucks driving by and my kids are playing here. And like touching into something real.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point too. It takes something as simple as just this little small street and this huge truck coming by and just the sound and the weight of that truck, it sends a chill down your spine because you think as a parent, well, if my kid was, I still think like this, I don't know if it's because of Pet Sematary, but I was just walking my dog this morning and I was cognizant of like looking at the road and making sure no cars are coming because I don't want my dog to get hit. You think about that with your kids too, I see little kids, going down our neighborhood. And if they're a little bit too far away from their parents, you get a little bit
for future
worried.
reference, bring up your kids first before the pet.
No, the pets are more important. No, but it's true, though. And I think that's why Pet Sematary works so well, because it taps into those fears that almost everybody has, just as simple as it is.
Like after finishing watching it, I like thought to my wife doesn't watch horror movies at all, and I finished it and I was like, that movie has everything that my wife would hate, everything that would make her just like, Like she'd be traumatized. She'd run upstairs and would just be like grabbing the kids.
Mm-hmm.
Everything from the beginning to the end of it, traumatizing for her.
Mm-hmm.
My wife was just mad they didn't build a fence. Ever.
Yeah.
You got to be practical, right? Let's build a freaking fence. Yeah. I want to dive right into the characters. You know, I want to start comparing, and definitely I want to get to that ending because that's definitely a big thing I want to talk about. But
Are we on the original here, or are
well,
we
I'm gonna segue a little bit into the new one because I want to kind of compare the characters. For me, I think, and this is just for me, I think the most important character in Pet Sematary is Lewis. Because when I watched that first movie, it's Lewis's reaction to everything that makes it so profound. Mm-hmm. And so that's what I was looking for when I was going into the remake. I was like, okay, all right, in the trailer, you know, you see that tear rolling down his eye at the funeral. I was like, okay, what is this Lewis, what is Jason Clarke going to give me with this? And every time there would be an opportunity for it to happen, it felt kind of muted. You know, it didn't feel as, like impactful as what happened, you know, the way that Dale Midkiff played it. And
strongly disagree.
Yeah, and you're because there's a lot of people that say they don't like Dale Midkiff's performance at all, and I find that interesting. I really do. I'm not saying they're wrong and I'm right. It's it's all opinions, but for me, I think because Dale took it to a level where he goes almost insane. For me, that just kind of it worked for me.
Strongly disagree.
Yeah, go ahead, Bryan. You want to talk? Go ahead.
I don't agree at all. I think one of the weakest things of that original film was his performance. I think the story and the way that Lambert directed it and the practical stuff really feeds into.
Strongly disagree.
Makes it so good. Who cares? But no, to me, Jason Clarke's. There was several times during the new one where actually Jason Clarke's reactions to me, and you've got to bear in mind as well that they've changed elements of it, which kind of feeds differently into what the characters are doing.
Yeah.
So there's a moment where there's one squeaky chair, man.
Is that Zelda?
I was waiting for Bryan to start like.
He's gonna start getting triggered.
Sean, please. No. It's the moment on the bed when Ellie comes home. See, I have one major gripe with the new one, and we'll get into that when we get into our gripes. But anyway, there's one moment when Ellie comes home and she's on the bed and she's talking with Lewis, and you see in his face, and it's I think it's quite subtly done performance wise, but there's that instant acknowledgement that he knows he's done the wrong thing. He knows that he's gone somewhere he should have gone.
Oh, in the remake.
That whole sequence when she first comes home and he does the bath and lays in bed with her, that was awesome. Like that's where I was like, good. Oh, this is getting ready to get really good. It's everything after that where it goes to hell for me, but we'll get into it.
Still disagree, but for me, my biggest gripe is him burying Ellie and then going home. Now, as a father, there is no way on this earth I would bury my child knowing fully well she's going to wake back up. Hopefully, that's what he's hoping, and be in that place on her own.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah,
like that would keep me up at night. He goes back home and he goes to sleep. It's like there's no way I'm sleeping knowing that she's out there and could at any minute wake up, be on her own, and has got to trek back home from somewhere where she doesn't even know where she is because they've had to trek over that big pile of bones or whatever it is and then go up that massive hill and through all those forests and misty trees and whatnot. It's like, no, I am not leaving that place. If I bury her there, I'm staying there until she wakes up. And that moment when he goes back home and goes to sleep, that just it grated on my nerves considerably. But
do you feel like, because they do the same thing in the original, do you just feel like that was an opportunity for them to make it make more sense in the remake that they failed with?
Here's the thing. I watched the original for the first time just about 2 years ago.
Oh.
And I don't remember if I had that reaction to that moment, but everything else in the film was so strong, I guess I didn't really care so much. But if that is the case, if it did do that in the original film, then yeah, I've got a problem with it, because like it's one thing to bury a cat and then and not know what's going to happen, and then the next morning the cat just appears. It's another thing to assume that your daughter is going to wake up and make her own way back home through all that, of the journey they made. I would be absolutely sleepless, worried about where she is, what she's thinking. Is she worried about where her daddy is? Is she crying for me right now? It's just, no, that to me is a worse nightmare than the child being hit by the truck, quite frankly. There's no way.
I feel horrible that I never even thought of that, but that makes so much sense.
I was thinking the same thing, Chris. I'd never thought about it, but it makes a lot of sense. Like, why wouldn't you just sit out there and wait till,
I just accepted the rules of the movie. You bury them, you go home, you go to sleep, you wake up, muddy footprints in the house, and they're there. But
a watched pot doesn't boil.
In the first movie, there's a line that kind of justifies it by Judd, where he's talking about what you keep is what you own, and what you own always comes back to you. And it even closes the movie with that line. So it's a little different in the original, but yeah, I can see where the remake, it's going for the remake shaves a lot of the campiness out of it, and it shaves a lot of the weirdness out of it. And it tries to go more grounded, a little bit more realistic, a little bit more modern. And I never thought of it, but when you point that out, it does feel like a little bit of a logic break when they're trying to go for more of that realistic tone.
I think what you say about the realism as well, because of the original, because it does have a certain cheese factor and all that kind of stuff, I think that probably is why you maybe don't key into that element, because they do go for real, for genuine kind of sense of darkness and dread. You key into what's real more, I think.
Yeah.
And when that real element isn't very real, it kind of...
What is that?
That's the thunderstorm around my home.
Oh, wow.
Oh, wow.
Serious.
I thought somebody's
coming?
Like I mentioned, last night was a long night for me. It was a pretty mice running around my house, thunderstorm, the whole deal.
Oh, man.
Sean, give me your thoughts on Lewis as a character. I want to keep you awake because I know you're tired. And you can kind of compare both movies if you want.
So, some of you guys are even older than me. So, did you guys watch Time Tracks back in the day?
Oh my God! Can I share a quick little story about Time Track? Because that's Dale Midkiff.
You can. That's why that is Dale Midkiff.
My son, his middle name is Darian. I named him after the main character in Time Tracks. Isn't that crazy?
I have no idea what that is. So
and I'd never watched the show. That's the funny thing. I just like the name.
I've seen Star Trek.
So, one of these mid-'90s syndicated TV shows, and Dale Midkiff started it. So that's the only thing that I know him from, is from watching that 25 years ago when I was a little kid. And so then start the movie, and I was like, I recognize this guy. What is it? What is it? Oh, Time Tracks, that guy. And I haven't watched an episode
Darian
in 25
Lambert.
years. And it was like a time travel story, and people in the future can like slow down time by focusing, something like that. That's all I remember about it. Anyway, so I think if you on paper, I was talking to Cody about this, but on paper, Jason Clarke is just a better actor than Dale is. I think it's hard to argue that, but better doesn't mean more effective. Like, just because he is a greater thespian doesn't mean he fits the role in the movie that he's in to a greater degree than the previous one. And it's kind of like with everything about the original one, just felt cheaper to me watching it now. As I mentioned before, just the production stuck out to me. but it doesn't mean it wasn't effective at creating the emotions and the vibe and the unsettling and the grief and everything. Like, you understood everything perfectly fine. And it felt like this new one, in trying to clean that up and make this slick new production, it sanded off all the rough edges, but it also took all the bite out of it too. I mean, it just kind of made it feel like everything else. Like, okay, that's a guy that's acting properly, but it doesn't mean that I'm feeling the way that I'm supposed to feel.
Yeah.
That's kind of the whole movie. I had that vibe. Like, I don't know which, because I'm that person that doesn't have nostalgia and didn't bring a whole lot into the new one. I don't know which one I prefer. I think for me, the new one's probably easier to watch.
Yeah.
Just because it does have modern aesthetics and pacing and things like that. But it's not because I would say like, oh, it's just a better movie. I still haven't decided yet which one I like more. So, but you know, as the character, I think just it's interesting the way that they built into the story two different parents.
Yeah,
trying to teach their children about death, which that's the phase of life I'm in right now. Of like, my kids are just at that age where they're starting to understand dying. We had to put down one of our dogs this past summer that my son just absolutely loved, and so we're having to have that conversation about death and all the stuff. The conversations in this movie, both movies, those are the ones that I had all last summer, and still kind of have them now. And my son will say these just kind of pretty disturbing things like, you know, I wish I could die and be with Sadie again. Like, whoa, son, please don't say that. And he doesn't know what he's saying because he can't fully process death and everything like that. And he's just trying to figure out, he's trying to say that he loves his dog. But I mean, I think the movie finds a really interesting way, the source material might be the better way to phrase it, to explore ideas about the different way we process death, which then makes the second half of the movies make so much more sense in how they do all of that.
Yeah, I think that's what, I mean, both movies, they create a good conversation, I think, you know, because after you leave them, you start thinking about death, and you start thinking about, what if my wife died and I could bring her back to life? You know, I mean, it does entertain a little bit of thought, and like, maybe I would do it, because I mean, when somebody passes away that we love so near and dear, you don't know how it's going to affect you unless, you know, of course, unless it's happened to you, but somebody that close, like your wife. Like, there was a guy when I was in basic training, his wife was pregnant, and his wife died, and then actually the child died first, and then his wife died hours later. So they had to break the news to him first that his child died, and then later they said, "Oh, and your wife died too." So I think that's what. That was pretty crazy. And I remember we were all just like huddled around this guy, praying for him and everything, and trying to get him through it, because everything he said, I got nothing to go back to. Because you know, he didn't really have too much of a family outside of his wife and his child. So. Yeah, it raises a lot of those questions. And, you know, we were talking about, and I'll give this to Cody, because I don't know if Cody has any thoughts that he feels like he needs to share about Lewis. But I was wanting to shift it to Ellie, because Ellie, I think, is almost as important as Lewis, obviously, at least in this new movie. Cody, I'll pass it to you, and if you want to mention something about Lewis, go ahead, but then you can segue right into Ellie and kind of compare the two.
Are we going to come back around to Judd, or you just want me to talk about characters in general real quick?
Yeah, we'll definitely come back around to Judd.
Okay. Yeah. Well, for Ellie, she's the one performance in this that I think there's no debate that she's better in this new movie, because even as much as I adore the old movie, and it's not necessarily the actress's fault. I think it's just what they give her to do. She's a very annoying character. She's there to be hysterical for 90 minutes. Yeah. She's always, the way that she delivers her lines and stuff like that. That's literally the one thing about the original that you will never get an argument out of me, is that the daughter's annoying. So you get to this new one, and obviously she's given much more to do. But I think overall, just the acting is better with Ellie. I don't think it's necessarily like groundbreaking. It's not like this huge standout performance or anything like that, but she's certainly better than the original. When it comes to Lewis, this is one of those times when, you know, I always try, I was talking with Sean about this last night. I always try, no matter how passionate I am about a certain opinion, to try to kind of see different sides. Like, yeah, I can see why you wouldn't like it, even though I love it. Dale Midkiff's performance in Pet Sematary, for whatever reason, is one of those things that I can never understand the opinion that he's terrible in the movie. I just don't understand it. Completely. So it's just one of those mental blocks I have, I guess. That guy.
Well, it's the same reason people don't like Eddie Redmayne in Jupiter Ascending. It's when he's
No,
low,
you
he's
can't even
low.
compare that. Oh my God, he's horrible.
I just did.
Awful.
But yet, name me one person that said that Eddie Redmayne is awesome in Jupiter Ascending. I'll wait.
I won't. So Dale, but no, Dale. Maybe it's because of the story and the emotions and everything, but just every major piece of that story, from when they first get there and he's just got to be the regular guy, the regular dad. I really enjoy his performance as a father. When he has to have those real serious talks with Ellie once in a while, when she starts questioning him about when Church dies, if he dies, and this kind of stuff, and then especially when you get to the scene when Gage is hit by the truck and he just screams.
Yeah.
Like, that really hits me every single time that I see it. When you see the performance whenever he's debating on whether or not to bring his son back, and then he's holding his son, whenever he's losing his mind in the third act, whenever he realizes that he's brought his son back, and before he's even woken up, his wife and essentially his best friend in the movie across the street is dead violently. And he, when that phone call, what did you do? And it's like he's screaming at his son, but he's kind of screaming at himself. What did you do? And then, especially when you get to the scene whenever he has to euthanize his son, even though he's a monster, he's killed people, he's obviously trying to kill him. The pain in his eyes when he has to stick that needle into his son's neck, and his son suddenly reverts back to an infant crying about a needle. And even down to the final scene, whenever he just loses his mind and brings his wife back, like straight across the board, that guy's performance just hits so many different levels for me. When you get to Jason Clarke, and I had the same exact opinion as Sean, every single actor in the remake on paper is a better actor. John Lithgow especially is like one of the greatest actors that has ever been on screen. If you're going to cast a movie, if I was going to cast a movie, I would cast Jason Clarke over Dale Midkiff, no question. But Jason Clarke, what he brings to this role, for me personally, it never hit me the way that it hit with Dale Midkiff. I thought that he was good for the first half when it was just kind of the regular guy, the dad, the husband. I thought he was doing good. But when the movie takes that turn and suddenly requires all of those things that Dale Midkiff gave me, all the emotion, all the hysteria, I never got that from him.
Yeah, and I think it's just one of those things where
I disagree, because I just feel like it's a different tone, and for me, it's
hold that thought, Brian. Victor Watson, thank you, $5 super chat. I love both movies; they're good to me. One's just old and one is new. I love the original and like the new one as well. Cool. Thanks.
Yeah.
Sorry, Brian. Go ahead.
I just think that what Clarke does is much more subtle, and I enjoyed it more on certain levels. I wouldn't say that the original performer was bad.
Yeah,
it just
melodramatic.
Yeah, melodramatic. And I think melodrama suits the style and the tone of that original movie. Like, if you put that performance from him in the new one, it wouldn't work at all. It'd stand out like a sore thumb.
Two different playing fields.
Yeah,
exactly. And to me, I do like that tone that the new one sets, and I do think that Clarke's performance is really great because of those subtleties, because he doesn't go large with everything.
I wouldn't say great, but I don't think either performance is wrong. I think people deal with grief in different ways, and this is like you can have it this way, you can have it Jason Clarke's way, or you can have it Dale Midkiff's way. I think it could come down to the directing too, because I think in the original, I don't know, I think Mary Lambert, I think she did a better job directing the original as far as what she wanted out of the actors. Whereas in this new one, I didn't feel like the actors, especially Ellie in that third act, I didn't think they knew where to go with their characters, or they didn't get to where they needed to go. I guess that's a better way of saying it.
I thought the mother in this was a lot better than the original. A lot better.
I agree, 100. Yeah, I agree with that.
And I also do. I know Cody's going to disagree with me on this one, but I preferred John Lithgow in this.
Oh, Jesus!
All you got to be kidding me, Brian. What the?
I did.
With no nostalgia. What?
I've got no nostalgia. Look, I saw this. I saw the original 2 years ago. I saw the original 2 years ago. That was a great horror film. If, as some of us have already said, a bit outdated in some areas. For me, I just preferred what John Lithgow did. But primarily, the character who I thought, or the actor that I thought that definitely far and away exceeded the original was the one who played the wife.
Yeah.
Durbin, what are your thoughts on the character Judd? And you can kind of lump Judd and Pascal together, at least in my mind, because in the remake, they didn't deliver what you got in the original to me. They were kind of just an afterthought, especially Pascal. But I'll turn it over to you, Durbin.
Oh, man. Good. I get the tough questions. It's hard to say which Judd I like better because I think each Judd works perfectly for their movie. I mean, I think the 1989 Pet Sematary, I think for that time and that tone and for what that movie was, you couldn't have got a better Judd. But that guy would not cross over at all to 2019, I don't think, and especially with the tone that they were doing in that movie. John Lithgow was amazing, and he was one of my absolute favorite parts of the new Pet Sematary. And I liked in the new Pet Sematary where we got a little hints and clues to his past, a picture of his wife, and then you had Ellie tormenting him. She takes off the mask, and it's his wife's face. And, you know, the idea that his wife is rotting in hell because John Lithgow brought her back from the dead at one point and had to put her down. And so, like, I just feel like that was the indication of that scene, and I thought that is a fascinating backstory because Judd has a history with that ground. It shows that the power of that sour ground has a pull on him that so much as bringing a cat back from the dead, he wanted to go back over there. So I thought story-wise and lore-wise, it was interesting to dig a little bit more into the character of Judd, kind of have that backstory about his wife a little bit. So things like that I liked a little bit better just because I liked that backstory. I'm not saying it is better. I'm just saying for me, who kind of likes that backstory and getting deeper into those characters, I thought that was pretty cool. And we definitely got ripped on Pascal, man. Oh, gosh. I mean, I think it was really interesting in the new movie, right when he got injured, and, you know, the lights flicker and all that stuff, and then he's sitting straight up and he delivers the message, and it was kind of cool when his ghost comes to the house and draws Jason Clarke out, you know, to the Pet Sematary, and it's like, okay, that's cool. But I did like him being more of that kind of friendly ghost guiding angel throughout the original 1989, and it gives his character more of a purpose. And I think he kind of did some of that purpose in the beginning, but what really makes that character worth having in the movie is, you know, he's this guiding angel, and they did not deliver on that.
Yeah, the original guy that played him, he was a lot more out front. You know, like he was always there, like, hey, don't go there, don't do that. If you bury her, you're making a horrible mistake. He was almost like freaking yelling at Lewis. What are you doing? Yeah. Are you crazy? Pascal was
I got that sense from this one. Are you saying that he lured him out to the Pet Sematary in the new one?
Okay, maybe lured is the wrong word, but it felt like he lured him.
Well, he shows him in the room, he shows him the door. He shows him as a warning in both films. He lures him there at first and says, "Do not go beyond."
Yes, that's what I meant. Yeah, he does. Yeah,
Pascal has a much smaller role in the book too.
Does he really?
The remake is closer to the representation of Pascal because they expanded a bit on the original. So this is probably
for me. There's a primary purpose to Pascal, and that is literally to tell him not to go down the avenue that he's going to go down, and like there's a whole spiritual element to this film, which is this idea that actually only God gets to decide who lives and who dies.
Right.
Once we go to our grave, what happens to our souls between us and the higher power. And when you interfere with that, then you and especially with a family member, it's almost like a form of false idolatry. You are worshipping that family member above and beyond the ideals of, you know, the God that created that person. And to me, Pascal is symbolic of God saying, look, don't go down this road.
Yes.
Do not go down this road. If you go down this road, it's going to end in darkness, in tears. And that's exactly what happens. This guy destroys his own family as the result of that false idolatry of his own child.
I got to call out James Tillotson in the chat. He brings up a really good point there. He said in the original, Judd is more of a father figure to Lewis, whereas, and I'm kind of paraphrasing what he said, but in the new one, I didn't get it as much of it. It was more of like just a friend that was kind of helping him. Not saying one's better than the other, but I think he really hit on something there. Judd did come across as more of a father figure, I think, in the original, and I think that's maybe part of the reason why I enjoyed Judd more in the first one. Sean, is that something you would agree with?
Yeah, I would totally agree with that way. He phrased it really nicely, and that there's like also a quirkiness to him in the original one that Lithgow didn't seem to have. And so you have this father figure that's kind of a weird guy, but you really like him for his weirdness and his quirks. And so you can kind of go along with some of these like weird things that he's doing because you like him and this fatherly role he's playing. And then Lithgow, just kind of felt like the hermit across the street that they're almost doing a favor by spending time with him.
Yeah, like Fred Gwynn. I just felt that there was so much more variety to his performance. Even like there were some times where the guy was funny. Right, exactly. Lithgow was just kind of middle of the road the whole way, and I don't know. I connected much more with Fred Gwynn, his performance.
I think where I connected with John Lithgow was the story. It was maybe a little bit less John Lithgow's performance, but more the story that they put behind his character with the wife and stuff like that. Like to me, I was so fascinated by that.
I thought Lithgow had warmth, particularly towards Ellie, and I thought he became a father figure to Ellie in some respects, quite quickly, actually.
In this one?
Yes, in this one.
They dipped their toe into it. That's something that me and CP were discussing. I really liked how they tried to make it to where it wasn't necessarily the friendship or the fatherly relationship with Lewis that kind of brings Judd into the family. It's more so how Ellie kind of touches his heart, which is the first person that he says has done that since his wife has been gone. But they never really fully realized it to me. Like they go there and I'm like, ooh, that's an interesting little dynamic. That gives him a reason to tell him about Barry in church because he doesn't want to see Ellie be hurt. And it was an interesting thing. But to me, like a lot of the things that they try to do differently in this remake, they touch on it and they never go back to it. And they never really fully realize it. Where if they had cooked those ideas a little bit more, despite my issues with some of the stories and some of the third act, I could appreciate this remake a lot more because of all those different elements that got to breathe. But I never really felt like they got to breathe in the new one. It just kind of, they threw it out there. Ooh, that's cool. And then it just never comes back.
Thank you, Vince Malley, in the super chat, and that's he pretty much hit on exactly what we were just talking about. So, the relationship between Lewis and Judd, it is an interesting thing to discuss. Bryan, what were you going to say?
I didn't know I was. I will say this just before anybody gets the wrong idea. I actually think that the original is the slightly better film. Mm-hmm. I saw it. Again, like I say, it was 2 years ago. I've only seen it once. It was 2 years ago, so it's hardly fresh in my memory. A lot of the stuff that happens in the remake, I couldn't even remember if it happened in the original because I know that they'd swapped Gage and Ellie around a lot. Mm-hmm. A lot of stuff that happens with Gage now happens with Ellie. So because of that, I couldn't remember certain things about the original. So I think the elements, certainly like what Cody was just talking about between between Judd in the original and the fatherly element, all of that I can't remember. So if I was to see it again, I could very well change my mind on that. But just going off my memories of the experience of watching that original for the first time, and just coming out of it and actually being genuinely shaken, mostly by Zelda, but other stuff as well. I would say that I think it's a better film. I think it's more impactful overall. But I do really like this remake as well. I'm not someone who thinks that that's a crap remake. I'm like, actually, I can understand the case for either or if somebody prefers either or. So
I got a question for CP, and I'll let CP grab the super chat first, but after you grab that, let me know what you think about them going with Ellie this time. Would you have preferred them to stick with Gage, or are you happy that they actually went with Ellie?
So first of all, Victor Watson in the chat, $10, thank you. I also think Jason Clarke's performance as a father running after his child after getting hit only to walk up to see his daughter. Shocking look, well played by Jason.
Yeah,
yeah,
and that the moment when he just cradles her and the mum can't even look.
Yeah,
that really touched me. The one thing I didn't like about that scene is that because they go the whole big action movie, truck comes up and tracks and stuff. That to me was just nonsense. But obviously it did allow for that like CP just said, you think he thinks it's the son, but it actually turns out to be the daughter. But I did like how that was played, and I did get genuinely emotional to see him just cradling his daughter there like that. Having a daughter myself.
I was actually wanting a little bit more from that performance, but maybe the directors were like, you know what, they did that in the original. Let's try a different approach to grief. So,
that appears to be the theme of this movie, though. There's like Cody said before, they give you these great ideas and never follow through. Like something that I thought was huge that they don't even touch on in the original was Lewis outright says in the remake that he doesn't believe in an afterlife.
Right.
And there's this great big opportunity to have him really struggle with, all right, something really does happen after death. Like to have like the shock and how he would go through that. There's none of that. It's kind of surprising that they.
I felt like that kind of shock wasn't in either version. Like I don't remember in the '89 version him having a crisis in his mind of, there is something after death, because look, people are coming back after I bury them. The cat's coming back.
The first one, he says that he does believe in an afterlife.
Yeah.
Because he says that. And the new movie takes a spin on it, and he makes the wife believe in an afterlife because of her trauma with her sister. And then he says outright, she asks him, so you don't believe in anything after death? And he just goes, no. And the scene ends. And I was right there with CP. I was going, wow, they're setting up a really interesting dynamic.
They could have played with that, but they didn't follow through.
Yeah,
I disagree with that as well, because I think that's the whole point of the film, to have him be the one who doesn't believe. It's the whole point of the film, because that's why he if there's nothing after death, then you are going to be the person who, if you can do something to bring them back, you will do it. If you are someone who believes there is something beyond death, then you're going to deal with your grief and move on. He can't move on because for him there is nothing else left, so he's got no choice. So he raises her from the dead, and gets more than he bargained for. That's the
so when he finds that out, then something should be altered about Lewis's character once he finds out, okay, I've been wrong this whole time. You don't get a sense of, he's come to this realization, wow, I'm wrong, and now what?
There's no real arc there, It's established that he is an atheist. I don't know if it's agnostic, whatever, but it's established with that. So after you find out that there's this grave out there that can bring your loved ones back to life, that's gonna make him question some things in his head as far as like religion and all that. And so do something with his character to give us some follow through. Maybe make him struggle with these emotions and what does it all mean and all that stuff. And they didn't really do that. I'll even go further and say that I think that I would bet there's like a director's cut out there of this movie, because I felt as I was watching it that it felt a bit tightened up scene to scene to scene. Like every scene did not go to the level that I wanted it to. It would just abruptly stop and then they'd move on to the next scene. And I'm like, wait, give me some. Wait, that's it? That's all I get? So I don't know. I bet you that there's an edit out there, like a director's cut. I'm hoping there is.
A Snyder cut?
A Snyder cut, yes. A 214-minute cut.
Yeah, I was really on board with the movie despite, it was impossible for me to walk into it and not compare it to the original in some way. So I was still really on board with the movie up to the point when Ellie comes home and everything, like the scene that we were talking about with Bryan earlier, where her eyes messed up. She's kind of herself, but there's something off about her, and she starts asking questions like what's wrong? And he's like, combing her hair, and the hair is just coming out of her skull and everything. And everything up to that point, I was like, man, here it's going to start to get really good. But immediately after that, he wakes up, and there's no transition whatsoever. She goes from a little bit off to immediately evil as hell. And as soon as that scene starts, within 5 minutes, Judd is dead. Within 5 minutes, the mom is dead. Within 5 minutes, Lewis is dead. And it's like, what? Take a breath. And that's when, to me, and you were asking the question to CP about whether or not they should have changed it from from Gage to Ellie. Despite my issues with the movie, I'm actually glad they changed it, because I'm one of those people that if you're going to remake a movie, especially a movie that's considered a classic, at least I consider it a classic, don't do the same exact thing, because you're setting yourself up for failures. So by doing this huge dynamic change and introducing all these things that's going to come into play in the third act you have somebody who's now back from the dead, who is old enough to know what happened to her and to ask questions and to physically do something about it. And there's a lot of dialogue and a lot of emotional character interactions that's potential there. But to me, when it got to that point of the movie, it just went generic slasher, and then the movie ends, and I was just like, that's it?
Yeah, Cody, we talked about this on your channel, that like once she was zombie daughter, you could have gone 20 minutes with just everything surrounding her, and
Yeah,
I
the
wanted to
mom
explore
coming
that
home
in
and-
like the best way. I really wanted them to go further with that last act, because that's what I wanted out of the movie. Even though it was spoiled for me in that trailer, I was still excited because the possibilities that they could do with. First off, to the age difference, Gage is pretty much a toddler, so I think there's only so far you can go with a toddler, and I think they made the best of it in the original. In this one, you have a child that's getting close to being a teenager. So what is she going to do now that she comes back? You could really play with that, and I think they took the shortcut.
Yeah. Which, Lee, I have to say thank you, because of your warning about that second trailer, I never watched it. So I have to say, I think what amped up my enjoyment for the second one was not knowing.
Yeah.
So that scene where the girl got hit by the truck, there was a moment where it played with me, and I went, oh, they're going to switch it up.
Yeah,
That's the
I'm
dynamic
so
twist.
jealous.
But then Gage ran out there, and I went, oh, they're not going to switch that up. So that's not the... Wait, no, it is? No.
Yeah,
What?
that was played well.
What? And then finally when she died, it's like, oh, thank God that's over. Now I know who's going to die.
Thank God she's dead.
Yeah.
And Sean, I'm
That's
curious
me.
something. I'm gonna take I'm gonna take the question answering role real quick.
Go ahead.
Or the question asking role. So as somebody that never saw the original, and you saw the trailer to this remake before you even saw the original, what are your thoughts on the way that they marketed that, being the way that they filmed this movie purposely to be manipulative to fans of the source material?
Yeah, I can't believe that they would put that in the trailer for either direction you go with it. Because as a person that hadn't seen the original, read the book or anything, I watched it. I was like, I can't believe that they would show that deep of a where this plot is going, that the child gets it. Like, I can't believe you would show that. And then I start talking to some other people like, no, what they revealed is that they swapped the kids. And so that, for me, that didn't mean anything. So just as the new person, I was like, okay, that's weird that you would reveal that. And then I watched the original one. I was like, oh, why would you reveal that? That's such a big twist.
It's insane.
And then you watch the movie, and as Durbin said, the movie sets it all up to make you think one thing's going to happen and something else. The director, the writer set it up to be a nice surprise for fans of the original. Like, we're gonna play against what you thought was going to happen, and then they spoiled it. Like, I can't believe they did that.
there's a lot of third act stuff in that trailer too. It's not even just that.
like Judd's Achilles heel, like when he's standing by the bed and it shows the shot from under the bed. It's like, that's awesome, because me, who didn't see the trailer, I went, oh no, he's going to get his Achilles heel cut. Then he kicks the bed away. But then he walks down the stairs, turns around at the cat, and then gets his heel cut. So the way it plays with you is great. But when I went home after the movie and I watched trailer 2, I went, thank God I didn't watch this. This would have
And
blown
thank
up
God you didn't watch the final trailer. I watched that after I saw the movie, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm so glad I didn't watch that.
If you don't know anything about this story, or you haven't seen the other film or anything like that, is it not enough to just have a film that's called Pet Sematary, to have a trailer in which it's the cat that comes back and does some crazy ass stuff? Because that cat was pretty damn creepy, to be honest.
The cat was
better
creepy,
in
I
this
think,
one than the
this
original.
one. Yeah. Yeah.
Like that alone as like a teaser would be enough to make me go, ooh, that's an interesting concept. I'm in on that. Like when the cat comes back and is an evil little one, that's enough to intrigue me. You don't need any more than that.
Right.
John Carpenter said the reason why remakes are so popular today is because you have a built-in audience. You already have a brand established. So when you're doing trailers for remakes, you don't have to give that much. Just like Bryan said, hey, we got a cat here. We're going to bring him back to life. But it's Pet Sematary, guys, right? So you already know about the movie anyway. So this is all we're going to give you.
This movie did not need 3 trailers.
I think studios think we're stupid. I think if they did just that with just a cat, they'd be like, oh,
Well,
they're expecting Marley and Me or something. Like
Lowest common denominator. That's what the marketing teams for these movies are doing. They're reaching out to the person that's like 14 years old that's never seen Pet Sematary, and they want to their attention span is just so freaking small, so they want to do whatever they can to get them in the seats, because really that's the age range that this movie is marketed towards. It's a horror film at the end of the day. they want teenagers
And-
to go see this movie. So that's what they're doing.
And to play devil's advocate too, even though I despise this outlook, there is plenty of moviegoers out there that want that much information before they go to a movie.
Oh,
They
yeah.
want to know every single plot beat.
But they
want
can
to know
always
every
find
twist.
it. Like
They
can
can.
always find it, but why market it that way? I don't
Oh,
want that.
Trust me,
Let them go
I'm with
find
you.
it.
There is also another problem that these companies are faced with in the modern age, which is absolute media saturation.
Yep.
Yeah.
If you don't push and push and push and push your film coming out, it gets lost in the crowd. Because when you've got Netflix and Amazon and all the stuff that comes out the cinema, every film
Everybody's
these
doing
days
it.
seems to be the big summer blockbuster. There isn't a summer blockbuster season anymore. It just seems to be all year. So if you don't hammer that marketing and really push it out, it's gone out of the consciousness, the public consciousness straight away. The
That
problem-
depends
yes
on
and
the
no.
movie, because the MCU is just fine.
I
Oh,
was
yeah,
just
they're
going to
doing-
say
yeah.
Avengers like set records, and
the
there hasn't been.
solution.
Yeah, but that's not a solo film. You can
No.
put out like everyone now knows that. All right, we're going to get 2-3 Marvel movies a year. They're big business. If you've got something that's a remake of some cult classic from the 80s,
Mhm.
there's only so much of an audience that's going to be invested in that, and half of it's gone already because it's kids, and kids aren't the target audience for this. So if you've got an 18 rated film or an R rated film or whatever, you need to get those adults in. You've got to saturate that market because it's already saturated with tons of stuff that's appealing to kids and whatnot. So
And the
just to play
solution,
that-
the
I got-
solution
oh,
for
go ahead,
that, the solution for that is to go the John Wick route. Stop putting trailers out 6 months before the movie's coming to theaters.
Yep.
If the movie's
Yeah.
coming out in April, drop your trailer in February.
And I'm beyond excited for John Wick.
Then.
Oh.
I got a question for Sean.
Yes.
And this is an MCU question, so that's why I'm directing it towards you.
All right.
This new trailer for Endgame, they don't. But I think in both trailers they don't show a single action scene. Yet, like in Infinity War, I think they gave you a lot more. Why do you think that is?
I think that they know that people are gonna they don't have to, and they don't have all the problems that were just described. They're like the one franchise that just absolutely has the momentum. Their name is enough. Everyone is waiting for this movie. Everyone wants to know what's going to happen. And so all they have to do is put out a trailer teasing the themes, a trailer that everyone knows has been CGI edited to mislead, that they're doing things to mess with the audience. And they're the one where the directors and Kevin Feige can say, we don't want to give anything away. You can't, we're going to say exactly what's in that trailer. And whereas I'm sure the director of Pet Sematary, when they watched that trailer, went, why would you spoil my movie? Why would you do that? That was supposed to be a surprise for the audience. The Russo brothers and Kevin Feige, they're the ones that have the clout and the momentum to be able to say, nope, we're just going to have Captain America sitting in a room saying, we don't move on. Sometimes with a beard, sometimes without. And we're going to show Scarlett Johansson sitting there with a few different hairstyles. And then people will show up and buy tickets. And they were right.
It's so
They were
funny
right.
because of how little information is in there and the amount of YouTube videos are out. People like theorizing every single little bitty thing about every frame of that trailer.
My theory video is coming out. Yeah.
Like I put out a shot by shot breakdown, just thinking like, I'll just put this out there. It's an opportunity to talk about some of this stuff. And it was like my most successful video besides my MCU ranking in like 6 months. And it was an afterthought video that I put out. And all I did was just like put a frame up and talked about it. Because people care that much, and people are like, this new last special look that they gave us, it spoiled everything. It was like, spoiled everything. We have not seen a single action sequence.
Not one.
They all they did was show two people talking to each other that we knew were eventually going to talk to each other. They just hadn't shown it already, and people are like, they spoiled it. Like
It's a 3-hour movie. They didn't spoil nothing.
and they showed us so little footage and so little action and so little perspective on what the actual story is, and people are still like, they spoiled it. Like, no, Pet Sematary, that spoiled it. That's what when you give plot beats where you can walk through the exact story of the movie all the way up until the last 5 minutes. That's spoiling it, not letting us know that two of the Avengers actually talk to each other in an Avengers movie. Not a spoiler.
They even do the Pet Sematary trailer in chronological order. They don't even try.
Exactly. Yeah.
This is the beginning of the movie. This is the middle. Here's the twist, and here's pretty much the end. There you go.
It reminds me of that Batman vs Superman.
I was
trailer
just
back in
gonna
the day
say,
that showed all of the beats, including revealing Doomsday, where it's like, well, now Superman's gonna die.
That trailer
You know that.
was
And that was a 3.5 minute trailer as well.
Yes,
it was like
it was
a super
awful.
cut trailer. Flipping heck, they literally condensed like per
Amazing
minute
Spider-Man 2, worst
Yep.
trailer of all time.
Well, which one? There was 12.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The 4-minute one that gave you the whole movie, and the
But
bookends.
So like with Pet Sematary, I hadn't seen the original. I hadn't watched the first trailer for it that was kind of like the vague one. And I didn't really know the plot synopsis of it. I just knew there's a cemetery and a cat that's creepy. That's all I knew. And I watched that second trailer. It was like, okay, now I know exactly what this is.
Mm-hmm.
Like I know all the way up until the last 5 minutes what this movie is. Because you set up the original part. You set up the introduction of the themes, the mythology. You showed me the middle of the movie twist where things start getting crazy, and then you showed me things started getting crazy. That's the whole movie, other than literally the last 2 or 3 minutes, which I thought I liked, where the last 2 or 3 minutes with like trying to find a different, very uneasy note to end on. I thought a kid sitting in a car, that was a good one. As a parent, like, oh no, that little kid's in the car. This is not going to go good. Other than that, they showed me everything.
I might be way out of line and way unprofessional for this, but do you guys want to talk about the Joker trailer for like 10 minutes? 'Cause
Yeah, sure.
that
Let's
needs
do
to
it.
be discussed.
What a trailer! What a
Yeah.
trailer!
That might be the best trailer I've seen in years.
Oh yeah.
Because they show you everything
nothing,
and they show
but
you
just
nothing.
Showed you his performance.
It's all about flavor. It gives you like it reminds me of that first trailer we got for The Dark Knight. It was just like, you know, a vocal of the Joker on the playing cards, and it gives you a flavor of what the film is without really giving you anything. And I mean, it's not quite to that extent, but with this one, we get the atmosphere, we get a flavor of who this character is. But we've got no idea what the story is, really.
Yeah.
At all. So I would be happy if they released no other trailers after this.
Yes, I would too.
Well, we got till
Especially since I
October to
reacted
prepare for
trailers.
3 more.
Cody, I was actually going to ask you, before this trailer, how did you feel about Joaquin Phoenix? And after the trailer, do you feel even more?
Joaquin Phoenix was the one thing about this that I never had any doubts about. I mean, that was the kind of the thing that legitimized it. I mean, for the longest time, they released the information about this when DCEU still really was kind of in turmoil. This was before Aquaman came out. This was before Shazam came out. And some people don't even really think that they're got their stuff together yet. But I think they've made a huge swing. But when me and Durbin have talked about it multiple times on the State of the DCU, they were releasing this. They were talking about doing a Jared Leto Joker movie. They were talking about doing a Margot Robbie and Jared Leto movie. They were talking about Birds of Prey. It was like they were throwing everything out there, and then they threw out this thing. Oh, by the way, Martin Scorsese's.
What?
It always does it when Cody's talking. We'll come back to Cody. Derbs, give me your opinion on the new trailer.
I want to know what about Martin Scorsese.
I know. I'm like, don't leave me hanging like that, Cody.
I'm back.
Oh, he's back.
I'm back.
Okay.
You lost us at Martin Scorsese. What?
You doofus.
Yeah, I saw it. My sound went deaf, and I was like, "Oh no!" And my Skype just crashed. So,
What is this camera you're using right now?
huh?
What is this camera you're using with this depth of field that you're...
I know.
What is that?
Skype does.
The
It's a
Logitech
default
one.
setting on Skype that I've
What?
actually had on before we started. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
It
a
blurs
it's a
the
new Skype
background, but
setting.
It keeps you good.
Yeah.
You click the plus button, Cody.
Yeah, exactly.
What
So,
about Martin Scorsese?
Yeah. What about him?
in the midst of all like 87 films that they were promising us back when DC was just going in every direction, all of a sudden they throw out this random, oh, by the way, Martin Scorsese is going to produce this standalone Joker film, and we're looking at Joaquin Phoenix to play the Joker, and everyone went, what? So at the same time, it's like that's the one idea that sounds legit enough to where this really has my interest. At the same time, it's kind of like, why do we need a standalone movie when we can't even get the universe going yet? Why do we need another Joker movie on top of the 8 you've already promised us? And do we really need to know the origins of this character of any? So that was all my kind of, mixed elements of my reception to their ideas. As soon as they finally cast Joaquin Phoenix, then it was like, well, okay, it's pretty well documented that this guy does not take any projects that he does not feel extremely passionate about. And regardless of most of his movies I have no interest in watching, he always delivers. So this is really cool. And then you get this trailer, and I watch it, and I went, that's pretty much what I expected the movie to be when Joaquin Phoenix signs on. So it looks really interesting. It looks like, and people are already doing it, which is ridiculous. They're already like, see, he's the best Joker. He's better than me.
We haven't seen it!
We've seen 2.5 minutes of pieces of what he's done, but as soon as this movie drops, it's going to be that conversation. That was never the conversation with Jared Leto. It will be a conversation in October. But yeah, I'm excited about it. I'm curious about it. Yeah, I don't really have too many fears about it anymore. That trailer pretty much silenced all that.
CP, how do we feel about a Joker backstory? Because it looks like we're getting a little bit of that.
I avoided the trailer.
Look at you, man. Good for you.
Nice.
It's a good. I mean, I don't think it gives away too much. I would
Well,
recommend
let me tell
watching
you
it.
beat for beat what happens then.
Yeah, go ahead. Frame one.
How did you guys feel about, and hopefully this doesn't really spoil, it shouldn't spoil anything for CP, but they show two different laughs in the trailer. They show one when he's by himself and he's in the Laugh Factory Club, I guess. And they show the one whenever he's kind of a little bit more maniacal in the train. Which one disturbed you a little bit more?
The laugh that disturbed me was the Laugh Factory laugh. The laugh itself
me too.
disturbed me. But the train one, it wasn't the laugh that disturbed me, but right before those guys punched him in the face and he turned around with that weird look on his face, the face disturbed me more than the laugh in that shot.
We'll watch the trailer right now together. No, I'm just kidding. Ruin it for CP.
How do you guys think this is going to play with the wider DCEU? Do you think this is going to remain a completely separate entity?
I do.
Yeah.
If they get Joaquin Phoenix on, I guarantee you that was part of his deal was, I am not doing a universe, I am not doing a sequel, I am not doing a franchise. This is it, or you can go talk to somebody else.
So this is like
Christian
an
Bale did the
Elseworlds
same thing.
This is them doing the comic book thing when you get something like The Killing Joke that just it's this one-off story where they can really knock it out of the park without the baggage of, well, where does Shazam tie into this? Is this going to eventually turn into the Jared Leto Joker? Or is it going to be like they have none of that baggage? We're going to tell a story about this guy in the 80s losing his mind.
But here's a
How do
wild
you
theory.
think general audiences are going to cope with that. Given
Me and Durbin have talked at length about this. I think that it's going to backfire a little bit on the overall universe because let's assume that this movie comes out and everybody loves it. Well, whatever version of Joker they decide to put into this further universe, whether it's a new one or they continue with Jared Leto, they're going to go, screw this, I want Joaquin Phoenix. Go talk to him.
Yep. Yeah, this is where they're going to shoot themselves in the foot. If this is amazing, it will suck for the DCEU.
Do you think they could have two different Earths, kind of?
Yes.
And then maybe do a Crisis on Infinite Earths and bring the best bits of each together?
Would Joaquin Phoenix do that? I mean, if you could say Joaquin Phoenix would do that definitively, then that would be kind of interesting. But if Joaquin Phoenix is truly, this is a one-off, we're doing this and we're done, I don't know how you could do that.
If you could tell Joaquin Phoenix that all the directors for future DC films going forwards are going to be people like Tarantino and Scorsese and people like that, if they took it that seriously.
Well, I mean, there's Oscar talk already. I mean, just from the trailer, that's how powerful his performance is in just the trailer.
I say let's wait. I mean, I know his performance is going to be good.
Yeah.
But let's wait and see this movie before we do all this praise.
Well, here's what I was thinking, and I guess I'll direct this one towards Sean, but there's this talk of this new Batman movie coming in a couple years, I think 2021, something like that. And it's like a detective version of the story. And this new Joker movie doesn't look like it takes place in the current day. So
It's set in the early 80s.
What's that?
Set in the early 80s.
Yeah, early 80s. So do you think there's a possibility that if this new Batman comes out and these two look like they could be in the same universe, maybe a third movie with both of them in there?
It's tough to know just because they've given us so little information on this new Batman movie that they've been working on for 27 years. Like they keep saying, it's a detective. It's going to be a younger Batman. And they keep saying vague things, but they're not locking in on what it is. And they're taking their sweet time to create it. So it's for that reason alone, it's kind of tough to say. But you might be onto something if they're trying to have this other universe that's set like in the 90s or something like that. And it's not totally a prequel, but it's like I I don't know, kind of like the First Class movies are this very loose prequel to the original X-Men trilogy. There's all sorts of continuity errors inside of it, but there's this kind of vague idea that, like, yeah, this is kind of like what happened there. It kind of informs what happened. It could be something along those lines, or the way that Superman Returns considers itself a sequel to Superman 1 and 2, but ignores Superman. Maybe they're planning to do something like that of, it's a loose continuity with these kind of other things over here. Maybe that's what they're doing. My one thought on the Joker trailer, a lot of people have been making Taxi Driver comparisons for good reason.
Yeah.
But more so, like, I was watching it and I was thinking like Nightcrawler, of just when you see Jake Gyllenhaal in Nightcrawler, you just this dark, disturbed, like every shot of Jake Gyllenhaal, and you're like, he's just so unsettling looking for what both the acting, the way he just looks, and immediately that first kind of shot in this new trailer where you just see Joaquin Phoenix sitting there, and it was like, I haven't seen someone look so unsettling just sitting there since Jake Gyllenhaal in Nightcrawler.
That's a good comparison. I didn't even think about that. And they both lost a lot of weight for these parts too. So.
Yeah, I will say this to fuel the fires too. As much as I really don't think that they're going to continue Joaquin Phoenix's Joker, regardless how successful it is, pretty convenient timing. Right after this movie started getting going, they pretty much canceled all their plans with Jared Leto.
Yeah.
That was my next question too. You just answered.
That's probably because they know. They know Joaquin Phoenix is going to kill it, and everybody was lukewarm on Leto, so it's like, let's just cut that then.
So Stephen King.
Yeah. I was just going to say that. Hey, Holly Klein, what's up? She's late to the party, but we're still here for you. We're going to jump over into some. You know what? Before I jump into other Stephen King movies, do we want to give our quick, I guess, just like one or two sentences of what we all thought of the new movie? Whether we liked it, whether we didn't like it.
Sure.
Just give me like a couple sentences. I'll start with Bryan.
Yeah, I really liked it. I'm like the original. I do remember, like, I've seen both of them once. The original, I would say, is the better film. Not necessarily the better made film from a production standpoint, but it's certainly more effective, certainly more impactful. That's just going off memory. And I think if I saw it again fresh, especially given that I've just seen the remake, I could end up hating the remake. I don't know, but I watched the remake essentially fresh because, like I say, one viewing of the original 2 years ago, there's not a right lot left there in my mind other than Zelda and a few other bits. So, yeah, I've essentially watched the remake quite fresh, and on that basis, I really liked it. I think Cody's opinion and CP's opinion could probably be more trustworthy on this one because they've seen that original so many times, so they can compare them a bit more. So,
well, if I could bounce off that, you actually kind of, it makes me wonder, like, what if I never saw the original? Would I like this movie more? Because I will admit, when I was watching this movie, I was constantly comparing it to the original. I guess that's the whole point of remakes. You strive to make a remake where the viewer is not, like, you take The Thing. The Thing is completely its own entity, but it still respects the source material, I think even more than the original. And it turns out being one of the greatest horror films of all time, arguably. And it's a hard thing to do. So it makes me wonder, would I have liked this movie more? Because a lot of it, the first 2/3 did feel way too similar to the original up until the Ellie thing. I'll pass it to CP now. Give me your thoughts.
Can we all agree that at the very least the score in the remake is nothing in comparison to the original?
I completely agree. Great point, CP.
Yeah.
I don't remember the score, so
exactly.
Of course you
I don't remember either.
Ryan, watch just the opening minute of Pet Sematary, and you'll be like, oh, yep, good point.
Well, even the piano during the dramatic stuff,
it's great.
It's crucial. I would say, enough for me to notice it not being there in the remake.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It was just, like Cody said before, a bunch of neat ideas that I would really like to see them flesh out and, expand on. It's not terrible. I didn't love it. It's just a down the middle 2.5 out of 5 for me.
I do think that if you've got younger ones today who saw It last year and really loved It, and you've never seen the original Pet Sematary, I think you're going to like this. I think you're going to be on a Stephen King high and be like, I'm loving these Stephen King adaptations.
Well, you're seeing a lot of that with like Entertainment Weekly and a lot of these like highbrow like reviews coming out. It's like Pet Sematary, scariest King movie in years.
I can't believe they actually said that.
Yeah, you can read some of the reviews and you can tell you're like, this person didn't watch the original. They went from It, they got hired to do this next review and they loved it. So it totally speaks to what you're saying.
We'll go to Durbin. Give me your quick final thoughts.
Quick final thoughts. The edge, I think, for me goes to the 89 version because Zelda was more unsettling in that version. The emotion was stronger in that version. There was an aspect to the new one that I did like better. I liked them rounding a few things out, like that if you've been to that sour ground and you felt the power of that place, it has a hook in you. So when Judd wants to bring a cat back from the dead, it's more than just he wants to make Ellie happy because she's touched his heart. It's the power of that place working on his heart, drawing that up as an excuse to do what he knows is wrong. And so I found those type of elements really interesting. I thought when Ellie came back from the dead and then she took her mom and buried her mom up there, while it took away from the power of Lewis burying his wife, it kind of showed that there was some sort of darkness up there that was desperately trying to break through at all costs. So
and
go ahead.
Why did they all have to get knocked out? Why did Judd have to get knocked out, and then Lewis had to get knocked out when they went into the second cemetery? It was strange. Never mind. Don't know. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, you're fine. You're fine.
Airbag.
Oh, you know what? We never even talked about that final scene where, all three, pretty much, I guess, what would you call them? Family. Like second base?
Yeah, like Sean said, that was horrendous. I don't have kids, but the idea of that kid alone in that car
with three
zombies.
As soon as the kid was in the car, I was like, oh no, this is not good.
This is not good. Yeah.
And then where it ends on that final shot, and I was like, okay, this is, if you didn't want to redo the same exact final little moment of the other one, this is a nice way to end on like a type moment.
And I think they leave it open for like, you could make a sequel but not have it have to do anything with this original family and just have another family that moves to that town and then they go through the same thing or whatever. I don't know, but yeah, I think that ending just kind of left possibilities, I guess. Cody, let's hear yours and then we'll jump over to Stephen King.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I said in the end of my review, it's a good-ish remake. It's better than a lot of remakes. I'll give it that. I think it's a movie that I will rewatch. I'll probably buy it the first time that it comes out. I might even like it more now that I kind of know what to expect. It does a lot of things right, like directing, the cinematography-wise, the production value. It's all there. It's just because I have such a deep-seated experience and such a deep-seated response to the original film that a lot of the aspects of this one just paled in comparison. There was interesting ideas there, like I was talking about with CP on our stream, where they include the Wendigo a little bit. They talk about the pull of the place, and they talk about the atheism, whatever you want to call it, of Lewis, the non-belief of Lewis. All these different things that I feel like if they were just fleshed out a little bit more and made this remake just a little bit more, had a little bit more life to it, no pun intended, then I would enjoy it a lot more. But really the main thing is just that despite how great the actors are across the board, they didn't hit the same way. And the third act was my main negative, because it just, as soon as it got to the point where I'm like, okay, this is the make it or break it time, this is when this movie has the chance to really win me over, it did the opposite. To me, from the time that Ellie turns evil to the credits, that's the weakest part of the film by far, because it just doesn't take a breath. It's just... And I really hope there is a director's cut or unrated cut that at least gives us, I mean, I would even take 10 more minutes, but I think you could fit another 20 minutes of just exploring Ellie and how the mom reacts to it when she gets home and everything. And just that third act just felt so smashed together that
I loved her reaction, by the way, the one that we do get.
Yeah, for sure. That's
when she goes over and he says, "Hug your daughter," and she's
that was good.
as the person of faith, this is something that is abhorrent to her. That is just that ain't my daughter. No.
And that's what I wanted more of. Like you get it. It felt so rushed because all Judd has to do is say it's not too late to undo it, and she's like, well, he has to die. And then the mom comes home and she won't hug her. Well, she has to die. And like there could have been another 10 minutes there where she tries to fit back in, but everybody but Lewis is just so put off by it that eventually she just gets pissed and loses her mind. That could have been a great way to flesh out that third act, but
that feeds into the question that they did not expand on. Was it the daughter that came back, or was it something else in her body that came back? Because I kept getting the impression it was something else, but feeding from the memories that were in the body. But that's just an interpretation that I have because they didn't explore it.
I feel like that kind of is answered in a way with the way in which Judd responds to it, saying that you're claiming to be his wife and saying that your wife is burning in hell. He cuts right through it and essentially says, whatever you are, you ain't my wife, you're full of lies. And he doesn't bow to that kind of thing. So he sees it as some kind of demonic force as opposed to the genuine truth. The devil is the father of lies and all that kind of stuff. So I do think that answer is there. But I think it's vague enough for you to be able to read different things into it. So,
I heard this really crazy theory that those kids at the beginning of the movie, those kids with all those masks on, that what if they're actually dead, and that's why they keep the mask on, and that's why Ellie puts the mask on at the end. Because Ellie, she could go on. She could go on, quote unquote, living. For God knows how long. So what if those kids are, they have the intelligence that Ellie does. They can still function. So what if they're actually dead?
What purpose did they serve in the movie?
That's exactly what I was getting. That's another thing that might have even been in a cut of this movie. Like that's another element where they show this ritual and they never go back to it. They never flesh it out. They just show it to look weird. It just looks to me would make it would
marketed the movie with it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Wait till you guys see what we're going to do with this new aspect of the movie with these kids with these masks on. You're going to
think about how brilliant that third act would be if it fleshed out a little bit more. And on top of the disturbing note that they end on, they also show those kids.
Yeah, that would have been amazing.
There at the end and reveal that they're dead too. So it's this ongoing thing. Like there's just so many ideas there where it's like
that could have been amazing.
You dipped your toe into it, and there's so much you could have done with it, but you just skipped to the generic horror movie slasher stuff.
Yep.
There is quite a few moments in the trailer that aren't actually in the film. Like we do get to see a bit where Zelda is kind of crawling along the floor. You see it from the top of her back, and her sister is kind of down the corridor. So that's clearly, it looks very Exorcist-esque. And that wasn't in the film. There's also some stuff with Ellie herself, the way she moves, and there was a bit with someone in a rocking chair that, again, that wasn't in the film. So there's definitely more footage and more scenes that we didn't see. So
we need that Snyder cut.
Yep.
Yeah, we do. 214 minutes.
Yeah, but being that the movie's successful, they have no motivation to do that. If it was a little bit mixed, they're like, well, there is a better cut, so it's...
Yeah, that's
Did we get the box office report for what it made?
Estimated 25.
25, okay. I guess that's what was the budget? Do you know, CP?
I don't know.
Okay.
And it made another 15 worldwide, so it's already at 40.
Oh, okay.
I'll look it up if you want to move on.
Okay. Yeah, sure. I was gonna say, do we want a sequel? Because they could greenlight a sequel if it makes sense.
I don't want a sequel, but I would be totally open for another story in this world. Like I don't want it to tie into the creeds. It doesn't even have to be a sequel, as in it takes place after. They could go back and tell more of like when the ground first started to go sour.
What if they did a sequel where, like, it's several years later, same neighborhood, there's a boy whose mom died as an actress on a set, and he gets bullied by some local kids. I got this great idea. And then a zombie rapes his wife. Isn't this awesome?
And they can cast Edward Furlong as the father.
These are the best ideas ever.
I think Edward Furlong could play the zombie.
I don't remember part 2 at all. Like, everything Sean just said, I completely blank.
I never saw part 2, and now that Sean described it that way, I'm glad I never
saw I thought about watching it last night, but I was like, nah.
Budget was $21 million.
They're clear.
So yeah, they're in the black. So yeah, I mean it's not nothing earth shattering or anything, but oh well. We'll kick it over to Stephen King now. I'll start with Sean. Oh, go ahead. What? Cody?
As a nice transition into the Stephen King universe, did you guys catch the little like the sign that said "Dairy 10 miles" and the mention of the Saint Bernard attack?
Ooh,
do you think
No.
Do you think that there's any possibility that with the success of it, with the undoubted success of this, that they're going to start like loosely tying these remakes?
Cody, things you missed video, get on it.
Get on it.
Yeah,
Get your circles and arrows ready.
Yeah,
On a
exactly.
completely unrelated note, did anybody notice the Annabelle doll in Shazam?
What?
Yeah.
No.
Because I
noticed Peter.
It's in Aquaman.
It was blink and you miss it, but I swear
Wow.
I saw the Annabelle doll. It's when when he locks the two policemen in the store.
Mhm.
So when the policemen go into the store and the camera kind of comes with them, on one of the shelves, I swear I saw an Annabelle.
That's crazy.
It's in Aquaman too. So both of the directors of Aquaman and Shazam have done.
It's
an
Warner
Annabelle.
Brothers properties, so that's why they're doing it. And speaking of Annabelle, this new Annabelle trailer, they actually have the Warrens in the movie, so it's like The Conjuring featuring Annabelle or something. I don't know. Kind of weird. Sean, I know you've been because I follow you on Twitter, and you've been doing a lot of reading lately. Do you read any Stephen King?
Yes. I haven't because they're all so long.
Yeah, they're long books.
And so, like, I kind of fully intended to get The Stand or some of these other these big classic ones, and then I just looked at the length and I was like, I mean, this would just take so long. And I'm my nature, I like to complete things, so I go for things that I can see the end in sight. And that's legitimately the reason that I haven't. If someone knows of something that's one of his good ones that's a little bit more bite-sized, I would be totally on board with it.
I think Pet
First Dark
Sematary
Tower.
is.
Yeah.
Shawshank Redemption's like sure.
The first
Yeah,
Dark
short.
Tower is really short. The second one is really boring.
I'll throw this question out to anybody that wants
Twilight's
to grab
pretty
it.
short.
What is it? I mean, Stephen King, he's obviously like the top. What is it about his stories that resonates so much with people? More than any other author.
He just explores themes so well with all of his stories. Like you look at Pet Sematary and it's about grief and death and acceptance and refusal. You look at something like The Shining, it's about isolation and madness and the power of the setting.
Yeah.
You look at something like It, and it's about childhood innocence and the corruption of all that. He just goes into a lot of different things. He very rarely repeats himself. And I haven't read a lot of his books I haven't read any of his books, if I can be honest. But I haven't seen any of the stories as far as like the less popular ones. I know he has way more books than he has movies, but as far as the ones that I'm very familiar with, he doesn't really tend to repeat himself too much. He tends
touches
to dive
on
into a lot of
childhood.
different
That's a bad word to use, but he touches on childhood quite a bit.
demonetized.
Yeah. Like the one that always connected with me the most, I think, was Stand By Me, and I think it's because I was around that age when that movie came out. And I think every kid can relate because I grew up in the South, in Columbus, Mississippi, and I used to literally walk train tracks. So seeing that scene in the movie, I always connected with those kids. They're just running on the train tracks, and then they're freaking out. And it's just really, it's when you get down to it, I think the big thing that Stephen King does right is characters. You really just can, fall in love with these characters that he creates.
Well, and questions.
Yeah.
I mean, Pet Sematary raises so many questions about death, the afterlife, and doesn't answer them. So it leaves you, as the audience, to think about it afterwards, to talk about it afterwards. And I feel that way with a lot of the Stephen King movies I've seen. They end abruptly, and it just leaves you with questions. And I think there's something about that drives you.
I think there's like a comfort level to his stories, that reaches out to even non-readers. There's just something about his stories that they just, they grab people.
Mm-hmm. They're good parables, I think, because he's not. I mean, like, again, I've not read his books. I can only talk about the way people have interpreted his work. I mean, and certainly my favorite Stephen King adaptation, King didn't even like. He hated it. So how much of that I can, attribute to him, I don't know. But a lot of his work, the ones that I do like, they do have spiritual themes. They do delve into, the nature of evil and the dark heart of man and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I think that just resonates with everyone, because we all want to know where we come from, and we all want to know where we're going.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I think that's what I think that's what horror in general, when it's good and not Terrifier, is what it does really well.
You had to go there, didn't you?
I had to go there. So
I think in this day and age, we're starting to get a lot of Stephen King remakes. Like we got Pet Sematary, or just Stephen King stories in general. Like I think we're even seeing like maybe 2 a year now at this point.
Mm-hmm.
They just
Netflix
won't stop making Stephen King movies.
Yeah.
What would you say is probably your favorite? I'll start with Sean, and we'll just talk about movies, not the books. But like, what's your favorite Stephen King movie?
Probably Shawshank, and then the latest It. I'm not as deep versed in, since there's so many adaptations, and I didn't necessarily grow up as a deep horror fan. But so the Shawshank Redemption, and then probably the latest It.
Yeah.
But I have to think about it, because there are so many, so it's easy to also be like, oh yeah, he did that too.
Yeah,
There's
that's
lot of
where
those that I
Shawshank
forget
is
about.
with me. When I first saw Shawshank, I didn't even realize that Stephen King wrote the book, or I think it's even based on a short story. Yeah,
The novella.
Very
Novella,
short story. Very short story. That film is more Frank Darabont than it is Stephen King.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It is one of the greatest movies I've ever seen, though. Still,
Oh yeah.
Shawshank
But
is amazing.
Isn't that part of the battle with Stephen King? If we're talking exclusively about movies, I think the important part is the hands that the story is in for direction, because there's a lot of misses for Stephen King stuff. And
Yep.
Stephen King himself made a laughable movie that,
Maximum Overdrive?
I think
This
that,
machine just called me an asshole.
If you look at all the telly series adaptations they did in the 90s,
Yeah.
that were very faithful apparently to his books, they kind of showed me that Stephen King doesn't know how to end a story. He has these great ideas and great sets of characters, and takes them on a great journey, and then he's like, crap, where do I go? And I'll just end it. Boom. And he just ends it. Whereas if you look at the ones where they put a great director on it, someone who knows how to adjust the material accordingly, they can really make that story shine.
He's an odd writer too. I kind of going back on what I said earlier. I have read part of it. I dedicated myself, like back when I was like 14. I'm going to read this book, and then I went Sean Chandler, and I went, nope. 5 chapters in, and I'm this far through. Like, so he's an odd writer, because like in it, there's a whole page and a half describing how Stan loses his virginity to his wife, and the different describing words that he uses to just focus on this one thing. And he even compares a body part to an exclamation point. And he's an odd writer. So I think that there is a case to be said about some of the love that we have for some of these movies, about the overall story kind of being filtered through the Hollywood machine and kind of getting to the meat and potatoes of it, if you will.
Yeah, he's a writer that if he's got an idea in his head, he's going to put it on paper and flesh it out. Mm-hmm. He's going to work through it, and you might get a whole chapter off of just some freaking weird item that's in his head.
Yeah,
he's just that type of writer. He doesn't edit himself as much as other authors do.
Mm-hmm.
Durbs, what's your favorite Stephen King movie?
He wrote The Green Mile, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm gonna have to go. That one is probably my favorite. I mean, it's not horror and it's not super intense, but it is a powerful, powerful story.
Oh yeah.
At least I haven't read the book. I'm talking about the film with amazing characters, Michael Clark Duncan and Tom Hanks. I haven't seen that movie in so long, but just talking about it, I could go back and watch it. But even recently, though, Cody had me watch Misery this week, and I thought that was a very fascinating film about idolatry and having an idol in your heart and then having to possess that idol. And she idolizes this author, so she must possess him as an object, and how much that corrupts both her and him. And it's like, I don't know, there's certain ways that he dives into spirituality of things that I think can be quite powerful. So Green Mile is my favorite example of that. Misery is probably my most recent example of that. So, yeah, there's just certain ways that we can explore things in these films that I like.
Mm-hmm. Cody told me to watch Misery before the stream as well, but he didn't tell me until 11:59 last night, which totally would have been fine, except there was a mouse in my house that I had to like tear up my whole living room to try and track down the mouse. And
there's a mouse in Green Mile.
I would highly recommend Misery, Sean. That is, especially because I love like isolated environment types of movies, and then you got this like obsessed fan. And, the guy's pretty much held hostage. But in terms of, like, dealing with tension, those moments in movies where you're like, don't go in there, don't go in there. You're rooting for this author to the whole movie. And the performance by Kathy Bates, she won an Oscar for the role. And
Best
she's
actress.
really the star of the movie. I mean, she really shines.
Who directed Misery?
Rob Reiner.
Yeah, Rob Reiner.
Yeah, I was talking with Sean last night about the stream and some other things, and then I just threw it out. I was like, have you seen Misery, by the way? And he's like, no. I was like, oh, I wish I would have known that before. It was 2 a.m. for me. I was like, before now. But yeah.
It works so well because it plays with the audience constantly. There's so many moments where he's got a chance to get out of that house. And, because he talks her into, like, leaving the house for a while. And so you as the viewer, you're just like... Get out that front door. You're going nuts, and that's what movies. That's what they're supposed to do.
Mm-hmm. I went nuts in that movie. I was like, oh man, I was getting angry.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
I've also got to go with The Dead Zone. That's a real film.
I've never even seen The Dead Zone.
What?
Yeah, haven't seen Salem's Lot.
Oh man, Christopher Walken in that film is so awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Really great film. Yeah, love The Dead Zone.
The Mist. I want to throw that in there. That was another Cody Leach made me watch film. Oh my gosh, my favorite
Darabont movie
analysis I've ever done on my channel has come from The Mist, because I just thought there was a lot of good stuff in The Mist.
Oh yeah.
One that I like a lot is Christine, because it combines Carpenter with King, and just the idea of this car that's like killing.
That's my favorite Carpenter score.
Yeah, it's a great score. It is. That's a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm.
CP. What's your favorite Stephen King movie?
Shawshank.
Yeah.
Yeah, like Bryan said before, the Darabont movies, Shawshank, Green Mile, Mist, the two Reiner movies.
Stand By Me.
Like I was saying before, in the right hands. You mentioned John Carpenter, Kubrick for Shining.
Yeah.
In the right hands, Stephen King's stuff is really good.
He's like David Goyer. He's like David S. Goyer. Basically, he's someone who's very good at formulating a story, but he's not very good at kind of being the one to handle that story.
Yeah.
You take that and you give it Christopher Nolan, you end up with Batman Begins. Whereas if you let him do it, you end up with Blade Trinity.
That's a swing.
Whew, Blade Trinity, that's a rough one. Oh, jeez. I'm glad you brought up The Shining, because I think pound for pound, that's probably my favorite Stephen King adaptation. Just because, freaking Stanley Kubrick. That movie really messes with, the psyche. Like, it's like...
I watched it with friends in the dark at 3 a.m.
My God,
I'll never forget that experience.
Well, Jack Nicholson's performance.
And Carrie De Palma.
Yeah, oh my God,
I'm telling you, in the right hands...
Right,
Sorry.
It's all about the director, really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a big job to be the director. Freaked me out.
Am I the only one that's seen Maximum Overdrive?
Maybe.
No.
I've seen it. Have, but far too long ago to be able to talk about it.
That's the only movie that Stephen King himself directed, and he was on a lot of cocaine at the time.
I watched that film many a time.
Well, you've sold me.
Yeah, that's all you need.
Why didn't you open with that?
Yeah. Why are
it's
we
got
doing
some good
this
stuff
stream
in
and
it,
not
though.
watching that movie?
Yeah. You know what?
I watched
It's well paced.
just because it had Green Goblin on the front of the truck. So
you got the soundtrack by AC/DC. So yeah, I liked it when I was a kid, but it's nothing. It's popcorn. That's pretty much what it is. It's just a cheesy '80s movie. But yeah, I enjoyed it.
But speaking of AC/DC, I got to go back to Pet Sematary. The Ramones.
Yeah.
Pulled way out of Pet Cemetery. Seemed way out of place in the movie every time the Ramones started playing.
When the trucker's about to hit Gage and you hear like this upbeat Ramones song.
Yeah.
Get it to go. This is weird. Okay, I think we've pretty much wrapped up everything we want to talk about, and I want to make sure I get to all my guests as like what's on their slate, because I know we're all really busy, so this could take a couple minutes. Sean, you are a very busy man. What do you got? And I know you're very schedule oriented, so what's on your schedule, upcoming for the next week?
So, a bunch of DCEU videos this week. Doing all my rankings for the year. Next weekend, Hellboy. Both reviewing the new one and ranking the movies. And then the end of this month, it's just a bunch of build up to Avengers Endgame, and then a bunch of stuff about Avengers Endgame. But yeah, it's a crazy, crazy busy season. Very exciting stuff.
Man, I can't believe we're 2 weeks away from Endgame. That's insane.
After Endgame comes out, Sean's going to reach 800,000
Yeah, when that comes out, man, that's it. Hang it up.
We will see.
Yeah. Cody, what about you?
I dropped a Pet Cemetery ranking about 2-3 hours ago. I also
doing
have
that tomorrow.
Oh,
okay, cool.
One, so.
And I'm glad I kind of got skipped over in the favorite Stephen King thing, because I have a top 5 Stephen King movies video dropping tomorrow. So I was like, how do I answer without spoiling my video? But
Nice.
it's a horror edition, because obviously movies like Shawshank and The Green Mile and Stand By Me would take precedence. So I kind of just wanted to focus on the horror stuff and keep the Pet Cemetery theme going. So that's coming tomorrow. I also have I have plans to do some DCEU rankings. It just depends on my time, because I'm having a lot of fun playing around with After Effects and the different lower thirds and stuff that I've kind of learned how to do. So I've been doing a little bit more rankings with that. As far as reviews, I do still have some Patreon requests. I have The Crow, I have Demon Knight, I've got Silver Bullet, so I have some good ones waiting in the wings for that. And then as far as like major releases in the theaters, I might see Hellboy. I'm not sure, but I also I'm working slowly but very hard on the additional kill rankings. Everybody seemed to really love the Nightmare on Elm Street one, so everyone's chomping at the bit and commenting a lot about the Halloween one. It's a lot more work than Nightmare on Elm Street.
Chip away at that over the week.
The problem is Nightmare on Elm Street is a franchise. Every single kill in that franchise, all 34 of them, is like a scene. There's a whole sequence that goes with the kill, so it's very easy to rank them and give reasons why. You get to Halloween, which I thought was the problem I was going to have with Friday the 13th. I didn't anticipate it for Michael Myers, but you get to Halloween, there's a good 70 kills that are just literally like, stab done.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm like,
why
wow.
is that kill better than this kill?
Yeah, and then I'm going to have to do something where literally there's like 134 kills I have counted or something like that, where at least 70 of them are probably going to be like a montage of take your pick. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, there's some definite worst ones. There's some definite best ones. There's a lot in the middle where I'm like, there's about 70 of them right here that I think I feel about the exact same with. So I'm getting a lot of work done on that one, but that one's probably not going to drop for at least another month, because there's a lot that goes into it.
Yeah. Durbania, what you got, man?
Let's see. Coming up next week, the biggest one I have on deck, and it's done. That makes me happy, is I have a theological analysis for Hellboy 1 and 2. I'm going to release that the night I'm going to go see the new Hellboy, and then, of course, I'm going to review that. I'll rank the Hellboy movies. I recorded a video with one of my good friends, our theory video for Endgame, and not based off any one trailer. It's just kind of our theories of who's going to die, how are they going to undo the snap, and other miscellaneous crazy theories. So I'm in the middle of editing that video. I'm going to release that the Monday of the week that we get into Endgame, and so I'm very much looking forward to that. And yeah, so those are the big ones that are on my plate, but there's always going to be all kinds of surprise ones that pop up.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. What about you, CP?
My lav mic bricked, so we're waiting for a new mic, and once it comes in, Emily and I will be doing Pet Sematary and the latest from Neil Breen. If you know anything about Neil Breen, he's Tommy Wiseau. And
oh, okay.
Yeah. Bad, comically bad.
What's the next? Because I know you've been doing. What do you call it? Who would watch that? Do you have anything?
Who would like that?
Yeah, who would like that?
Yeah, it's Cannibal Holocaust.
Oh God, I don't know how you do it, man. It's like
I
torture.
don't either.
CP's like that Andrew. Is it Andrew Zimmerman that goes to all the different places and eats the most revolting stuff in the world just for entertainment?
Yeah, that's pretty much
CP
it. I'll
watches
review movies that are just complete.
Yeah.
And I have to watch them twice, once to get it, and then once to like take notes and stuff. And it's just watching half of it.
You can watch Salo. You can watch anything.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a pretty good
Take
point.
your word for it. I'm never going to watch Salo. I'm never going to watch Serbian film or anything. I'll watch your review. That's enough.
I read the review of Salo in this, and that's it. I'm done. I am done.
I'm done.
In fact, let me find it. I would love to read it because it will put anyone.
Sean's tapping out.
Bryan, what do you got on deck?
Okay, so I've got these are ones that I've recorded. I've got the reviews for all the Final Destinations plus a ranking video. Reviews for all the Scream films plus a ranking video. I'm halfway through recording my reviews for the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which is quite frankly excruciatingly painful. Panic Room will probably be my first David Fincher review out. That's already been recorded and edited, and I've got a few others on the chopping block as well. But yeah,
Bryan is the only guy I know that can like have 10 videos recorded and edited, and he won't put them out.
Just named like 30. Yeah, he's got like a year's worth of work just kind of waiting in the winks. Like,
it's so I can take a break when the child arrives.
Yeah,
oh yeah,
that's smart. That's it.
I wish I would have done that with Halloween.
Yeah. So I just dropped my 8th, including this. I guess this will be the 9th Pet Sematary video. Not really, but might as well. So, yeah, because last night I dropped my spoiler review, and so. But I'm gonna do like I actually just did this top 25 horror lies. This video that I'm just gonna try something completely new and different, and let Killer Flicks do the work for me, and I'm just gonna read it. And the thing got like 3,000 views in a day, and I was like, wow, okay, that's weird how that works. I did. I'm gonna do It Follows Revisited. I've been dying to do that one. I've been planning that one for months. Phantasm 3, yeah. Doing Phantasm 3 with Cody.
4.
Is it 4? Yeah, we did 3, didn't we? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so Phantasm 4.
Sometime between now and next January, we'll get that out.
Yeah, exactly.
No, we're gonna put the you get the wheels turning on that one faster than the third one.
I did one, and that was enough.
I got 2 top 10s coming up. Top
film.
10 worst slashers, that's already recorded. Top 10 slasher icons, that's one I got to record. Man of Steel Revisited, Slumber Party 3, Prom Night 3, and then a Halloween commentary. That's pretty much what I got on deck. So, anyway, I want to thank my guests, Sean and Durbin. It was a pleasure. You guys made this easy, so I really appreciate you guys coming on.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah,
Thanks for having me too.
What, say that again, Sean.
Get some sleep.
Oh yeah, Sean's probably gonna go to bed right after this.
Seems that way.
Now he's got a mouse in his house and a massive thunderstorm outside, so that's probably not going to happen.
Well, and I got a text. My wife has purchased more traps for us to set, so it's going to be like Home Alone in here pretty soon.
Aren't we doing an in-game stream after that comes out?
I presented the idea to Sean. If he wants to join us, he's absolutely more than welcome. We'll just focus on Marvel for an episode.
Yeah, that could be fun. So.
I mean, obviously Durbin too. I'm not.
Yeah. I mean, if you guys all want to just regroup for the next in-game
superhero talk. Period.
Yeah. I was kind of itching to talk about in-game during this, but I was like, I don't want to veer off too much, and we do have the movie coming up, so we'll get.
Well, we got a Joker, and that kind of fits.
We did fit in Joker, though, so that was good. Mm-hmm. So, anyway, guys, thank you for watching. I hope you guys have a great day. If you haven't seen Pet Sematary, go check it out. Let us know what you think in the comments. Anyway, guys, I hope you guys have a great day. Peace out. CP?
Yes. Today's edible panties flavor is avocado.
Oh, my God.
Are we not avocado?